So in today's video, I want to talk about how I wasted a large amount of my 20s, a large chunk of my 20s, searching for purpose in all the wrong places. Now, let's start with purpose, the meaning of the word purpose. What do I mean by purpose? A lot of young men struggle with this. A lot of young men contemplate this. How do I find my purpose in life? Now, what do we mean by purpose? Well, here's a cell phone, right? This is my iPhone. What is the purpose of this phone? It allows me to communicate with the world. I can make phone calls. I can post on social media. I can post on YouTube. Also has some other capabilities, but primarily that is the purpose of a phone. It allows you to communicate with people. So what is then your purpose? Well, what are you meant to do? How are you supposed to live life? That's really what we're trying to figure out when, as a young man, you ask yourself, what is my purpose? It's for the sake of getting to the end of your life and being able to say that I lived a good life. I lived life properly. I used my life properly. It's just like a phone. If you don't use it for its intended purpose, well, then it breaks. If you use it improperly, it breaks. So if I were to try and cook eggs with my iPhone, I would damage it. It would break. It would be a waste of this object. In a similar fashion, I think a lot of people, not just men, but I primarily speak to men across all my forms of content. We don't want to get to the end of our lives and think we lived life improperly. And so from a young age, I have felt this need, this desire to find my purpose, to find purpose in my life. I want to know that once I was great and old, I wouldn't look back and feel as if I have a ton of regrets or as if I had wasted my life. Because when we look around, it appears as if so many people are wasting away their lives, right? So let's go back to childhood first, I'll speak for myself. Wherever you relate, you relate. But when I was a child, I first was given a model of how to live life properly by my mother. Of course, my father and I have a great relationship, but they got divorced when I was very young. And so I grew up primarily being influenced by my mother as a boy growing into a young man. And the model that she laid out for me was you go to church, you go to school, you get a degree, you go to university, you get a good job, you get married, you stay married, you have a family, you stay close with your family, and you manage your money as well as you can to make the most out of it. If opportunity arises to start a business or invest in things like real estate, then you do those things. And maybe if you're fortunate, you can actually amass a good amount of wealth at some point in the future. That's more or less the model that my mother communicated to me. However, as I got older, and that was the course I was on, but as I got older, I started to think that, well, I think there's more to life. There are more options, right? That didn't seem very appealing. It didn't seem appealing to me as I approached the age of 18. I just didn't think the basic, normal, not that anything's wrong with it, but the basic, normal, go to school, get a degree, become a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer or something like that, get a job that pays you around 6 figures, somewhere in that range, it just didn't seem very appealing to me. Also, I never felt very connected with God as a child. I wanted to be, I tried to be, I prayed to God. I went to church every single Sunday, unless someone was sick or we were out of town or something. But for as long as I can remember, my mother took me to church every Sunday. And I participated in church. I read Bible verses from the altar. I read the Bible. I went to Bible study. I went to school in Jamaica. I grew up in Jamaica. Jamaica is an incredibly Christian country, at least culturally, when it comes to spirituality or religion at the very least. As we know now, there's a difference between religion and spirituality. However, what that meant was we prayed in school every day. School started with a devotion. We would sing hymns and worship God. We would pray together. We would give offering and donations. Where did that money go? I don't fucking know. I don't know if it had anything to do with Jesus, but we gave money in the name of Jesus. And so that's how I grew up, right? But yet I never felt, it was clear when I read the Bible and I read the stories in the Bible, the kind of communication you see between God and the characters in the Bible, I never experienced that. No matter how much I prayed, no matter how much I asked, I never heard a voice. There was no clear communication the way how God presented himself to Abraham in a bush that wasn't consumed by fire or sent angels or things of that nature. And I really just didn't get all of it. I mean, I could go into it more, but why exactly did he have to kill his son? Couldn't he have just forgiven everybody? Why does he burn people in hell forever? Why doesn't he just send a clear message to everybody? What happens to the people who don't hear about it? And if the people who don't hear about it are spared because of their ignorance, then wouldn't it be better to not tell anybody about it so that everyone could benefit from ignorance? And that way just live a normal life and, so many problems that I saw. And then, of course, I started reading books by atheists like Richard Dawkins and reading books like The Delusion, and so many logical problems were presented in regards to the God of the Bible and the God of fundamentalist monotheistic religion. And so by the time I was like 17, 18, I was completely over religion. And I was around the age, at 16, turning 17, I moved to America. And as soon as I had the opportunity, I stopped going to church. I stopped reading the Bible because to me, it just felt like theater. It felt like a waste of time. I was uninterested and I didn't see how it was benefiting me. That's the big thing. And I think it's a big reason why a lot of young people stop going to church. It's because the societal pressure to be a Christian or to be someone who goes to church just doesn't really exist anymore. And when it is removed from your life does not seem to get worse in any significant way. It didn't when I was 17, and it didn't when I was 29 and I deconstructed from Christianity. My life got no worse as a result of having left it, which is very unlike any other thing in your life that is actually benefiting you. If something is actually benefiting you and is good for you, then you should notice things getting worse when you stop doing it. Working out objectively makes you healthier. And so if you stop working out, you should notice the quality of your life decreasing. You can apply this to your sleep habits, the kind of food you eat, the kind of people you're around, the way you spend your time. If something is doing good in your life, when you remove it, you should be able to notice a decrease or a worsening of the quality of your life. But that didn't happen when I stopped even trying to participate at the age of 16. And it definitely didn't happen when I did it at 29, after I had my own genuine zeal and putting my own real effort and tried my best and was so committed with the brain of an adult. When I left religion, my life didn't get any worse. And quite frankly, my life is exponentially better now, just, 6 months after, well, more like 8 months after having deconstructed and gone down this new path of consciousness and spirituality. My life is infinitely better. I make money incredibly easily. My marriage has literally never been better in every way. Life is so good. The amount of love that I am getting and receiving on YouTube from creators and subscribers, I mean, it's better than it's ever been. And things are going upwards in a very, accelerated way. My health is better. My stress has never been lower. I've never been more confident in my life. My life has objectively gotten better in every single way after having left the religion of fundamentalist Christianity. Now, I don't say this to discourage you if you're a Christian. There are definitely ways to operate as a Christian, be a Christian, and reap many of, if not even the same amount of the benefits of the spiritual practices we talk about on this channel. I'm just communicating to you, though, that I don't think any religion, any tradition, any culture has a monopoly on spiritual enlightenment and spiritual empowerment. I didn't want to get on too much of a tangent. I say all that to say that at a young age, around 17, I realized that just didn't appeal to me. I wanted more out of life. And so, I went into high school and I thought, you know what? Success is what is going to make me feel fulfilled. Being very successful is what will make me feel fulfilled. And having moved to America and joining the basketball team, having always been passionate about basketball, I set my sights on going to the NBA. I thought to myself, if I could only make it to the NBA and become a multimillionaire, I would be very successful, I'd be famous, and I'd feel as if I had done what I was supposed to do with my life, become successful, take that money, buy my mom a mansion, have a wonderful life that is filled with financial and other forms of success and all of that. But eventually I didn't see the basketball thing panning out. And I shifted to wanting to just be my own boss in some capacity. Eventually I fell into YouTube. I discovered the law of attraction through the book, The Secret. I didn't quite understand it at that point in time, reflecting on it. However, I understood it enough in order to materialize a successful YouTube career, which, guys, I want that to be an encouragement to you that don't worry about whether or not you understand it perfectly. It's just like the guy who doesn't understand the science of weight training and bodybuilding perfectly. The fact that he's getting up every day with the right intentions to walk down that path and see results, he's going to see results in his life. And as he continues to practice it with time, if he stays the course, he will understand it better and see even more gains coming out of every workout. In the same way, even if you don't completely, perfectly understand the law of attraction, just by having the intention and putting in the effort, you're going to start to see progress. And as you continue down that path, you're going to see even more and more progress as your understanding deepens, as you connect more with God that is already within you. So I fell into YouTube, used the law of attraction, which I was, again, doing improperly. I see that now. Improperly from the sense of I didn't understand it holistically. And for that reason, after I gained my success on YouTube, I started to doubt it, which is so backwards, right? You would think you apply the law of attraction, you want to manifest something, you actually manifest it, and then you start doubting it. Isn't that crazy? But that's what happened. You know, I was influenced by all the narratives about it being new age and this, that, and the third, not knowing that even Jesus himself taught it in the book of Mark. Anything you ask for in prayer, if you believe you have already received it, it will be yours. And so I just chalked up my success to being consistent, hardworking, talented, and being a little lucky. And combine that with the motivation or the drive that I had that was fueled by my delusion of the law of attraction. Everything, just the stars aligned and it all worked out. However, I can see now how there were so many synchronicities, so many things that just aligned perfectly while I was in that law of attraction mindset that allowed for me to become a successful YouTuber. I'm talking about things that have nothing to do with YouTube. So many things aligned. It's a shame how I just didn't really get it, which then ultimately led me to wasting much of my 20s. Because after I no longer believed in the law of attraction, because I thought, again, it was just new age, it was magical thinking, it was, you know, a delusion that just ended up working out for me. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when a kid is learning to ride a bicycle and his dad is behind him, holding the bike, and he's pedaling, and he doesn't realize his dad stopped holding the bike. That belief that his dad is still helping him is motivating him to keep going forward without being afraid. And by the time he looks back and sees his dad in the distance, he realizes, man, I just went all this way by myself. And so I guess I don't need my dad. And then he can keep riding the bike. Well, unfortunately, that's what happened with me in the law of attraction. I was convinced it was a delusion. And so I just chalked it up to all the things I have already mentioned. But here's where that was the beginning of the end, in the sense that instead of continuing to just conquer the fucking universe, things started to destabilize and then ultimately resulted in things going the way that they did, which we're going to talk about for those of you who might be new to me. Some of you know my story very intimately because I've been a YouTuber for 8 years and you've been following me for 8 years. And so you've seen just about every chapter of the story. But for those of you who might be new or aren't super tapped in, and maybe there's some holes in the timeline of young Don, then this will be a good opportunity for you to understand. Anyway, so because I relinquished this belief that I was the cause of my success on YouTube via the law of attraction, I then put the power, the cause of my success, in the hands of the external. That's what you do. If you are not the cause, if the cause isn't you, then it's got to be something else. And so what was that something else? The opinions of others, luck, the YouTube algorithm. I started to put the power in the hands of others. You cared about what people think. Oh, what's the right video I should make to please these people? How do I service my followers? And then from a young age, I've had an interest in music. That's a whole story in of itself. But having gained a following on YouTube and having friends who are rappers, it gave me enough confidence to try it out. But unlike with when I first was trying to become a YouTuber, I had so much fear and anxiety bogging me down because of, the narrative. It's so hard to transition from being a YouTuber to a rapper. That narrative is so loud and prominent. And then, what if I start making music and my fans don't like it and they think it's cringe? And, what if I'm not good? And I just had all of these fears bogging me down, not realizing that the universe is always in the palm of your hand, not just my hand, in all of our hands at all times. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager, you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. The moment you wake up, the universe is in your hands. And you have the ability to manifest as amazing a life as you want with the time you have left on this planet. But in regards to that point in my life where I was making music, not even consistently, but it wouldn't go more than a few months before I would drop some more music. It was as I was getting towards the end where I would ultimately stop for several years that shit started to pick up and continue to go crazy after I'd stopped making music, which reflects the principle, the metaphysical principle of the universe that what you chase escapes. And it is only once you detach that things come easily. But along with that period of my life, I started to also have other fears in regards to my YouTube channel, in regards to my Young Don the Sauce God animations channel. Despite the fact that every animation I posted, more or less, was cracking 1 million views, I was becoming afraid. Why? Well, for one, it just seems as if nobody really lasts forever, right? As a YouTuber, there is a shelf life, it would seem. And by this point, I had already been a YouTuber for probably around 5 years. And I was wondering, how long is this going to last? Of course, you always had people in the comment section, he's running out of stories. And I didn't really see myself as running out of stories. But at the same time, I was like, am I running out of stories? I guess, a lot of these stories I tell are from my childhood. Now I spend all my time inside telling these stories. I'm not really living life like that to be making new stories on a regular basis. Maybe I'm going to run. And just fear just started to seep in, all finding their roots, their foundation back in the fact that I had taken the power out of my own hands and put it in the hands of the external. And so even though I'd found myself in a position where I was making over $20,000 a month, I had fame, I was still very young, I was in my mid-20s, I started asking myself the same question in regards to purpose again. Am I living my life properly? Am I doing this right? And around the time that COVID happened, which was around the same time that Kevin Samuels started to blow up, who is a deceased dating coach, I suppose we could say. He was an older man in his 50s, I think, and he had a dating show where he would invite on middle-aged, young to middle-aged, single women, primarily Black, and he would give them dating advice. And even though he himself was a man that was married and then divorced, he would speak about the importance of being married. And I definitely grew up with a good view of marriage, even though by my mid-20s, I was like, I'm never getting married. He started to influence me into thinking that, again, going back to purpose, again, going back to getting to the end of my life and thinking that I did it properly and that I had a fulfilled life, I started to be influenced by the idea that I should get married and start a family. Couple that with thinking, oh man, well, that would open up a whole new arc of my life that I could tell animated stories for. And so maybe that would prolong my career for another, who knows, 10 plus years. And also, as a man, you enjoy the company of women. And I was thinking to myself, well, maybe this whole running around, dating casually thing isn't good. And I just had this feeling of emptiness, this feeling of like something's missing, but I didn't quite know what it was, right? We're going to get to the God-shaped hole that every person has that Christians will talk about, which is fucking bullshit, but we're going to get to it. It's not bullshit in the sense of, in a way, I guess you could say it's a God-shaped hole, but thinking that God-shaped hole is filled by becoming a religious Christian is fucking bullshit. We're going to get to that in a minute. Anyway, but again, look into the external. So much look into the external. Maybe a wife, a family, you know what I'm saying? Maybe a change of content. Maybe that will please these people. Getting advice from another older person. All these things, looking again to the external. That's the path I went down. And so I ended up finding the girl who would become my wife. This was a girl that I had dated previously to this point that I thought was amazing. And we picked up where we left off. And things progressed. Eventually, I married her and we started a family. And it was through going through that phase of my life that inspired me to look into religion, because I was like, oh man, well, now I got a wife and kids, but then the fear of divorce, the fear of not raising your children properly. My wife was pregnant with a girl. I don't want to raise a thought. I thought, no pun intended. And so I was like, where do I turn to now? What do I do? And then I started reconsidering religion all over again, thinking to myself, oh, well, if we practice religion and we're a good Christian family, even if we didn't believe in all the hocus pocus shit, the magical shit, the stories, the fantastical stories of animals coming 2 by 2 from every corner of the earth, land animals traversing millions of miles of water. How did that happen? But, even if we don't believe in all that stuff, just being a cultural Christian family would be good for our marriage and for our children. And that's when you start hearing about the God-shaped hole, right? How you can only find fulfillment in Christ and all of that shit. And so we start going to church, and you expose yourself to something, to ideologies and concepts long enough, they're going to affect you. They're going to convince you. Either you will eventually become convinced, or it's just going to not harmonize with you so long that eventually you stop listening altogether because it's upsetting you. Those are the only two things that I think can happen if you constantly expose yourself to an idea over and over. You'll either reject it and get away from it because you don't agree with it, it doesn't appeal to you, it doesn't resonate with you at all, and so you get away from it, or you will start to believe it, you will start to be more and more convinced of it, and that's essentially what happened with me. And eventually I had my own come to Jesus moment, emotional. I was constantly listening to pastors, constantly listening to sermons. But yet still, and this is why I said earlier, it's fucking bullshit. See, once you've found the truth, you should feel at peace. You should feel stable. You should feel as if you've crossed the finish line. And that's what a Christian would sell you, that's the God-shaped hole that gets filled when you find Jesus and invite him into your heart. However, when you become a Christian, you learn that your shit is just beginning. Now you gotta learn all of this doctrine in terms of, what it means to be a Christian, how a Christian should behave, which of course, they're all this shit that is disputed amongst Christians. Then you realize, oh, wait a second, I gotta now battle with sin and temptations and all of that, right? Like and there's a threshold where if you go too far, depending on, again, which variation of Christianity you fall into, either it means you were never a believer to begin with or that you've fallen away. And instead of things getting better, things just got worse, right? There was just so much feeling, the finish line kept getting further and further and further away. And this is precisely why you see so many Christians debating constantly amongst one another. They're searching for meaning. They're searching for purpose, constantly studying the Bible, constantly reading it. As Jesus said, you search the scriptures looking for God when I'm right in front of you, essentially. I'm paraphrasing here. Point is, there is no fucking fulfillment in that shit. You start thinking the fulfillment comes at the end, once you die and you go to heaven, And you have moments, don't get me wrong, you have moments when you feel like you're doing it right and you're in the zone. But that's why it's very common. You'll hear even pastors talk about it, how there's seasons where you feel far from God. It's because none of that is true spirituality. None of that will give you a sense of purpose. Going back to what I was saying earlier, it should be impossible for any person to leave the faith and not come to the realization that they made a mistake by the fact that their life should start to get worse and fall apart. But that's not what happens for a lot of people. For some people, yes, because they leave that misguided, confused model of spirituality that some religious people practice, and I dare say a grand majority of them practice, and you go back to being lost. But you're now lost without even some of the good habits that do come with being a Christian, right? Like at least trying to be an honest person, trying to be a kind person, a forgiving person, trying to be someone who doesn't overindulge, trying to be faithful to your spouse. You go back to having no fucking spiritual guidance, and now you relinquish the feeling of obligation to do those shits. And so, yeah, those people, their lives fall apart. But there are many people such as myself, people like my boy Nero Knowledge, who were incredibly devout Christians, left that shit and then leveled the fuck up. Every aspect of life got better. And it's because there is a God-shaped hole within all of us. And that God-shaped hole is knowing that you are a manifestation of God. That you are the creator of your reality. That there is no one to prove anything to. There is no one to validate. And that you get exactly what you want in this life. Not what you say you want, but what you truly want. What you tell the universe you want by what you focus on. Because what you sow, you reap. We reap what we sow. What you focus on grows. And so everybody has the opportunity to have exactly the kind of life they want. And through the power of your imagination, which that is what Jesus is a metaphor for, the power of your imagination. The character of Jesus is a metaphor for the power that is available to all of us through our imagination. The subconscious mind being the womb of all creation. You can have exactly the reality in life that you want. Should you come into this awareness that your external world is a projection of your beliefs about yourself and thus the world around you. And so at that point, once you get to that understanding, one, you finally are at peace. You finally get to a place where you realize life becomes like a Minecraft game. You can have whatever you want instantly in the spiritual plane, and thus feeling the contentment and the fulfillment of that spiritually, emotionally. But then if you maintain that energetically, it will also manifest physically for the sake of reaffirming this energetic state that you're maintaining internally. But essentially, Minecraft is a creative block building game where you can build whatever you want. There is no right or wrong way to play Minecraft. Similarly, with life. The purpose of your life is to create whatever life you want. It is to understand, it is to know that as a manifestation of God, as someone with access to the creative power of God, you can have whatever reality you desire. You don't need to feel limited by fear. You don't need to feel limited by judgment, by circumstances. Your external circumstances do not determine what is available for you. Your past experiences do not determine what your future experiences will be. In the present moment, you get to decide. There is no one to please. There is no one to validate. There's no need for validation. Everything is you. You can either have this entertaining or this form of entertainment be a horror movie, or it can be, a fantastically amazing life where you are the hero, where you have plot armor. I have plot armor. You will not find fulfillment in becoming religious. You will not find fulfillment in getting married, in having children, in starting a family, and even having a girlfriend. You won't find fulfillment in materialistic success or fame. Fulfillment comes from understanding, from knowing that you are God. Now, for some people, that's too heavy of a pill to swallow. And so if it makes you more comfortable to say, well, you are a child of God. Well, you were made in the image of God. You are a manifestation of God. If those things make you feel better, then they're all saying the same thing. I mean, God didn't have a problem saying ye are gods in the Bible. Which is why Jesus said, if God said that you are gods, why are you beefing with me? Because I call myself the Son of God. You reject the scriptures. If there was fulfillment in any of those things, you would never have a pastor getting thrown out of church for cheating on his wife. You would never have a rich celebrity killing himself on drugs or just pulling the plug out of depression. You would never have, no man would ever cheat on his wife. No man would ever abandon his children if there was fulfillment in any of those things. You get to decide, you get to imagine, and that's what I want for you youngins especially. Those of you who aren't married, with no children, who still have your entire 20s ahead of you, man. And again, like I said, I mean, I've been able to do miraculous things in my life in just 4 months of doing this. So if you're in your 30s, your 40s, or your 50s, please don't think that it's fucking over for you or anything like that, nigga. Many of the world's most powerful and successful men didn't create that success until they were your age. And with Jesus being a metaphor for your imagination, that's how you can understand the passage where he says that you will never thirst again. You will never hunger again once you drink from this well that I have for you. And that's because once you learn how to satisfy your desires, how to restabilize your emotions by using your imagination, then there will never come a time in your life again where you think feeling satisfied, being happy is on the other side of some external event. So many people walk around thinking, man, if only my wife acted like this, if only my kids were like that, if only I made that much money, if only this person treated me that way, if only this was, what's going on in my life would be good. My life would be better. But you can have that right now, spiritually and emotionally, by living from the end. Learning how to immerse yourself in the wish fulfilled. And then you get to a point where you don't even need it physically. And it's once you're in that detached state of not needing it physically because you have it spiritually and mentally and emotionally, that's when it appears in your physical world. If I had known at 25 what I know now, I would have, if I could go back in time and speak to my 25-year-old self, right after he blew up on YouTube, first I would properly explain the metaphysical principles that govern the universe. I had a misconception of how law of attraction worked. I would have helped him to iron out an understanding. That's what this channel is for you guys to understand this shit properly. But then I would have sent him off on his way with an understanding and a knowing that all you have to do is clearly identify what you want, immerse yourself in that reality mentally, live from the end, and it will be yours. Don't worry about anything external, and understand that this is how all of life works. But my friends, my brothers, my sisters, whether you were a Christian, an atheist, a Muslim, or you're just like me, whatever, you see yourself as just a spiritual scientist even, I just want you to know I love you, and I want nothing but the best for you. I wish you the best. And I hope that you find power. I hope you find your power. Because I cannot imagine, bro. I am so happy for my children. I am so happy for my children, bro. Man, I'm excited for them. But I'm excited for you too. Because, shit, I'm teaching you this shit too. But all right, that's it. Go ahead and hit the join button, subscribe, and join and become a channel member. Thank you for watching. And I hope that helps.